In this video, we're going to talk about Spawn and his Deadzones of Betrayal. For the longest time in the Spawn storyline, the dead zones were the main thing, how he kept them closed, heaven and hell couldn't pass through, and Spawn was eliminating them one by one. But when Spawn gets betrayed by one of his closest friends and gets hacked into his mind for the dead zones, and when that successfully goes through, all hell breaks loose, and this is a storyline of that. This is the Ultimate Spawn video part 3. Spawn issues number 336 to 345. Brought to you by RatedComics. Now before we get into the content, links in the description if you wish to purchase any of the comic books and or some of our Rated Comic exclusives to add to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Timestamps will be in description if you wish to go from issue to issue. Also, if you wish to check out the Ultimate Spawn video part 2 or part 1 to get caught up, I'll put the links in description as well. Also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Like the video and subscribe to Rated Comics YouTube channel. It'll help Rated Comics to make more content like this. Now, with all that being said, hey, let's get into the content. Before we get into the issue, Sin's surprise attack of Omega Island was met by Clown's forces and the sudden appearance of Sin's brother, the Forsaken. The world was still young the last time Sin laid eyes on his brother. Though a millennia has passed since then, he still clearly recalls that fateful day when he, as Cain, crushed in the skull of Abel, forever changing the world. It was the day Sin committed the first murder, going biblical here. Before that, the brothers had been boys who loved each other dearly. Neither could have ever conceived the world they now find themselves in as they go at it back and forth. I love this half panel of Cain and Abel back in the day, and now Sin the Forsaken evolved into today's world. The pain that awaited them, they could not imagine the hate that would one day fill the boys' hearts, because when these boys grew into men, they became the first human Hellspawn and Redeemer. And they go at it hard. Ham! Forsaken lays a haymaker on Sin. Necroplasm is oozing out of his head. You've no idea how long I waited for this, Cain. How long I spent wondering when I ever get my revenge. And Sin's like, for me, I didn't think about you once, but I'll do a better job at killing you this time. Despite Sin's bravado, he knows he's potentially made a fatal miscalculation in coming here. And so does Clown. And Clown was like, I was hoping he put up more of a challenge because Sin is getting his ass wiped on the floor. Arrogance has always been Sin's downfall. The second he gets a taste of power, he's like a child on a sugar rush. It goes straight to his head. He's thinking he's unstoppable, but look at him. He's leaking necroplasm like a sieve. I actually had to look up what Civ was. You could judge me on that later because I didn't know, but hey, he's getting his butt whipped. He may be able to siphon power from Hellspawns, but he can lose it just as fast, so we keep him busy, keep him burning through his energy reserves. Then we gut him like a pig. In this panel right here, Mark has to deal with the tough question asked by Overkill when Mark was making a call for She-Spawn in the previous issue asking for help and reinforcements. What are you doing, Mark? Who'd you call? Jim says no messages in or out, says Overkill. Don't worry, Overkill, I was just calling for a pizza because, you know, I'm human and everything and I gotta eat, so I was hungry. We're trying to save the world, Mark. Overkill's not buying it. And Overkill tells him the Spawn Master doesn't care about anyone or anything, just himself. We have to stop him, understand? I don't want to hurt you. And he's referring to Spawn, so you need to tell me who you were calling. But in the meantime, while he was doing all that confrontation, Mark's medieval Spawn mask is following him, and as soon as it engages and activates, he transforms into medieval Spawn, and he tells him, I would have words with you, Overkill, but you need to step away from Mark now, or else. And you know what? Forget or else. He's just gonna go at it and whacks him in the back, gets him out the face. I told you didn't want none of the smoke. So Daniel Kilgore tells Medieval Spawn about time you showed yourself, Medieval Spawn. So they're ready to go at it. Not to them, but to, you know, in the base, they want to have some fun. Ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. And Medieval Spawn tells him that you were warned. There might be delays, Kilgore. Are you ready to proceed? And Kilgore tells him that his brother, Hans, is in position. We've been waiting for the right moment. Well, it turns out the right moment is here. I'll deal with these two. Let's get some. And so they go at it, but in this panel, this isn't how it was supposed to go down. The plan was for a quick shock and awe attack that would bring Omega Island to its knees. unexpected obstacles slowed the progress of Sin's army. Though while Clown's forces have, after initial setback, proven more resilient than expected, the prospect of a quick victory has dwindled too. And Blood's associate, maybe second in command, tells her that we're being pushed back into the south and we lost most of the Necroziles. The sun will be up soon. What should we do, Blood? We're getting worked here. And Blood's like, well, give the order to retreat. And Cataclysm is like, no, we need to stay and help Sid. And Blood's like, if your information had been more accurate, we wouldn't be in this freaking mess. Sid overplayed his hand in coming here. It was an ambitious gamble, but it failed. If I were you, I worry about your own survival. And Blood flies off with his associates. The order is given, and in minutes, Sin's already depleted force to shrink even further. And Forsaken knocks his ass back in this panel. After you murder me, do you know what happened, Kane? I was one of the first humans let into heaven, so the purifiers can use me as a plaything, testing to see how much pain they can inflict before I broke. Once they found that limit, they brainwashed me into being their lapdog, and now I can finally make all of you pay for what you did to me. It was only by being pulled to this era that I was able to regain control of myself. And says like, man, don't worry, I'll end your suffering right now. Once again, his bravado's overcoming and he's overplaying his hands. And Forsaken's like, you don't get to lord over me no more. You're just the first thing that's going to fall. The rest of heaven will soon be following you into oblivion. That was one hell of a fight, man. I loved it. In this panel right here, Nyx and Jim Downing are still in Spawn's mind. And because where they're at right now in the friendly suburban neighborhood, Jim is like, this can't actually be Al's mind. We can't still be in Spawn's mind because this actually looks normal, which somehow makes it more unnerving because they're used to Spawn and Al Simmons being darker. Nyx is like, oh my gosh, they're at Spawn's wedding. It's his wedding the day he married Wanda Blake. And Jim's like, I met her one time back when I first started out as Spawn, and I didn't realize who she was at the time, but my symbiote shared Al's memories with me afterwards. We don't get no editorial notes with that, because I don't know what issue that is. But anyways, so Jim tells Nyx that she seemed like a good person, but it's strange seeing Al happy. I don't ever think I ever seen him smile. It just makes me sadder to see what he's become now. But this could be a good sign though, because as they approach and keep walking down his memory lane, and these are memories that Al Simmons guards with his life, they must be getting close to where Al keeps the secrets of unlocking the dead zones and controlling the dead zones. And as they keep walking, they believe they're found it because they found 14 graves, one for each of the dead zones, each with unique coordinates that Al must have hidden the power to control them in a different location on Earth. So Nick tries to memorize each coordinate, then they can go back to their, real world outside of Spawn's mind. But in the meantime, Jim disappears and Nyx wonders, where the hell are you? So as she goes back into real time and steps outside of Al's mind, Hunt is right there like, okay, take a deep breath and relax for a second. And Nyx's like, what the hell are you doing, traitor? I wasn't convinced that you and Jim Downey had my best interests at heart, because the only reason why Hunt joined him in the first place, because they told him they could find a cure for him. But he's like, I don't believe it. And guess what? I knew damn well you guys were gonna have my best interest. Now I was just proven otherwise. So Nyx looks at Jim and she wonders, what the hell have you guys done to him? And Spawn's like, less than he deserves. Is your little coop over, Nyx, or do I have to? And before anything could get started, well, it got started with Cyborg and Medieval Spawn going at it. And Hunt's brother tells him to get up and not to let Nyx escape. And he's like, I'm honest. So as he goes and attracts Nyx and tries to, pin her down to not let her escape, Nyx is like, I won't forget this, you traitor. And she blasts him off. All this fighting is ensuing and it's just right unfolding before Nyx's eyes. Nyx over here, says Jim, we need to disappear. This might be our only shot. We're not going to win this. Not today. But you're the only one who knows where he's hidden each dead zone. You need to find them before he moves them again, says Jim. What about the rest of you, says Nyx. Oh, we'll be just fine, but go. We'll try buying you as much time as we can. And that's where we end this issue of Spawn, issue number 336. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. I thought this was gangster. I thought this was fun. And seeing Sin and Forsaken go at it, even though it was short-lived and a short fight, I thought it was bloody necroplasmic fun. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. With all that being said, while Sin's invasion of Omega Island starts to crumble, Al is betrayed by one of the few people he ever considered a friend. So we begin this issue in the past. This event takes place prior to Spawn 333. Medieval Spawn goes up to Spawn in the alleyway while Spawn's handling business. He tells Spawn that he brings him a message that there's a plot against you. A team led by Jim Downing is being built to move against you, Spawn. He wants the Dead Zones. He's recruiting more, but so far his only member is Mark Rosen, whose body I've been using as a host. I'm able to access his memories. Spawn is pissed about this because he trusts Mark, but in previous events, Mark did this for his own reason because he wanted to see what Jim Downing was all about. So Spawn tells Medieval Spawn, find out who else Downing is recruiting. Meanwhile, Spawn goes to Hunt and tells him, hey, remember back then you asked to be useful? Well, here's your chance. If Downing approaches you for whatever reason, I want you to accept his offer. And Hunt's brother in spirit tells him, well, Downing might actually be able to help us find a cure for that poison that's in your suit. And Spawn's like, nah, he's not gonna do that. If he was gonna do that, you would have joined him by now if that were true. So Hunt is like, why not just call the Squirts on all this if you're asking us for reinforcements? So Spawn's like, nah, this ain't big enough. Someone else behind Downing is running things, and I need to draw them out in the open by letting myself get caught. You'll be my backup when that happens. And one other thing, Mark Rosen already joined him. So now, Spawn had already known his plan was going to be risky. In preparation though, he tried factoring every potential complication he could think of. The reappearance of Nyx had not been one of them. Her return blindsided him, and now he risks losing everything. After venturing deep into Spawn's mind, Nyx uncovered the secret locations where Spawn hid the power to control all 14 dead zones scattered around the world. 2 minutes ago, Nyx had teleported away, saying that she was going to start unlocking these dead zone locations. And seconds from now, control of these dead zones will be determined as Spawn's group battles Downing's new recruits, and they go at it. And this is a pretty good looking panel right here. Every moment Downing can delay Spawn in pursuing Nyx inches him closer to attaining his ultimate goal, which is to open up the dead zones. Medieval tells Spawn to leave and get out of here. Hans and I will deal with the things over here. You need to stop Nyx, and Spawn does that. Thousands of miles away, Sin's plan lies in tatters. Blood's vampires had made up the bulk of his forces, and now without them, the battle has turned into a massacre. Anyone who could have fled has done so already. Those remaining know Clown won't take prisoners, and though their efforts are ultimately doomed, they fight with the determination to kill as many foes as they can. This scientist gives a report to Clown. Reports are coming in from across the island. We've retaken the Easter, and Clown ain't trying to hear all that. All he wants to know is the latest on Sin and the Forsaken, and all the scientists can tell him is, well, the cameras have been incinerated, we can't locate them. But during their battle, Forsaken tells Sin, you better surrender, and he looks like he has the upper hand. You thought you could take the throne without me? And Sin's like, I did what you would have done, little brother. God favored your offerings over mine. I was jealous, but I never meant to kill you. I've carried that guilt for a millennia. And that was back when, in Spawn issue 331, when it was revealed that Cogs was Cain. And Forsaken ain't trying to hear all that. So Sin tells him, look, I don't expect you to change your mind, but before you kill me, I want your forgiveness. And Forsaken's like, you dare? Forgiveness? Not after thump or whatever whatever happens over here. Turns out Cataclysm shanked him in his neck. You dare touch me, demon? Sin knows there's but a brief window in which to strike. Gathering all the remaining power he's stolen from Spawn and the other hell spawns the last few months, he unleashes it. As he drags his weary body from the ground after knocking Abel a mile across the island, Sin doubts that'll be the last time he sees his brother. He's coming back again. Cataclysm asks him if he's okay, and Sin's like, yo man, I'm good. So Cataclysm tells him Blood abandoned us. Without his army, I doubt we'll be able to hold out much longer. And Sin is pissed. He'll pay for this betrayal. Let's focus on reaching the fissure. And it's not far from here, says Cataclysm. Most of Clown's forces are preoccupied with their fighting, and Sin's like, good, that will allow us time to get there first. In the past minutes, Spawn has visited 13 of his secret locations, each stop lasting seconds, as he goes about reclaiming the fragments of power he's hidden at each space. The first 5 locations were untouched, leading him to wonder, did he overestimate Nyx? Then he found out that one has been compromised, then another. and another, and now he arrives at the final location. Almost half of the dead zones are no longer under his control. This needs to stop, Nyx. You won't be able to control the dead zones even if you could find a way to unlock them. Only I can do that. Not anymore, Al, says Nyx. It's too much power for one person. You just won't accept that. Because I know what's coming. They'll all try and enter. Everyone trapped here, and on the other side, they all talk about this black beast. And that's a reference to Batman Spawn, which we did cover. I'll put the card at the end of this video and also link in description as well. Spawn warns her, you try this, you'll die all over again. Take that as a warning. And that's a reference to Spawn issue number 299 or 300. We definitely cover that at the playlist, and I'll put the playlist of all the Spawn issues we covered in the beginning, as well as the current playlist as well. I'm not sure what issue that is, but I believe it's 299, 300, or 301, something like that. Yeah, what angers Spawn the most is that after all these years, he still allows himself to feel betrayed. Nyx was different, at least she was supposed to be, as she was one of the few that had actually believed him. She goes into the portal, but she's changed since her resurrection. Spawn wonders if it's really her actions or someone who's influencing Nyx. Her eyes, though, tell him that Nyx is in full control of herself, but in the back of his mind, he knows they're both navigating a life that can take its toll on all of them. Now, as dawn breaks on Omega Island, these clowns found Forsaken, but Sin is gone. Clown gives them the order to hunt Sin down and make sure he doesn't reach that fissure. And Cataclysm's like, yo man, I hear Clown's men coming, we need to act quick. And Sin's not worried about it. He knows they'll be in the outer dimension in no time, and after all that, this will mean nothing to them. So they're there. And before I go any further, if you're liking the content so far, you know what to do. Like the video and subscribe to this channel. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. So once they reach the fissure, Sin tells Cataclysm, you've proven your loyalty today. And Sin tells her, and once I sit on the throne of hell, I will ensure that your loyalty is well rewarded. Clown's forces arrive in the chamber moments later to find the fissure sealed is shut. Sin and Cataclysm have left the world of men far behind by that point. Even after many decades away, Sin still recognizes it immediately. The barren edges of the ninth realm, the furthest point one could be from the throne while still standing in hell. The end of the first leg of Sin's journey. Let's get moving, says Sin. There's still a long way to go. Now in this panel, Haunt and Medieval Spawn give a report to Spawn. Haunt tells him, Downing and the others just bolted once you were gone. And Spawn thinks, well, okay, they must have received the signal from Nyx, right? And Spawn's like, well, perhaps so, but what about our deal? You made a deal with me. And Spawn tells him, give me a day or two, we'll reconnect on that. So Medieval Spawn asks Spawn, what plans do you have with the base? And Spawn's like, I'm not sure. It depends whether there's anything worth salvaging. Well, says Medieval Spawn, it may be worth speaking to Mark. He might have information about this place that I don't have access to. Should I manifest him? No, says Spawn. I don't need Mark ever again. If you read the previous issues, Spawn feels betrayed by Mark and he is pissed. So we conclude this issue with Jim Dowling observing that Nyx is angry. And don't be so hard on yourself. You took control of half the dead zones and that's huge. And Nyx is like, look, I could have had them all and I should have realized Al would have hit the power in different locations. And Jim tells you, look man, there's going to be other opportunities to get the rest, but we lost our element of surprise, says Nyx. Maybe, says Jim Downing, but the fact is there's 7 less dead zones to worry about and their powers will be more secure here. If anyone wants to try to take them, they'll have to fight their way through the green world first. And that's where we end this issue of Spawn, issue number 337. What you guys think of this comic book? Comment below, let me know. Also link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Lastly, don't forget to check out RatedComics.com if you wish to add any of our really cool Rated Comics exclusives to your comic book collection. They're definitely worth adding to your comic book collection. Now, one thing I like to highlight with this issue is I know before Nyx was a good ally of Spawn and considered her friend, but I love how situations could definitely turn that against one another, and they each have their own reasons for that. That's definitely what I enjoy about this issue the most. As Spawn declares war, the battle against heaven and hell is taken to another level. And what happens is in the previous issue, Jim Downing and Nyx's attack against Spawn was only partially successful. Nyx has gained control of half the dead zones while Spawn retains the other half. as Nyx takes a walk along the green world. It's one of the great forces in the universe, and since her earliest days of studying magic, she's been entranced by it. Gaia thinks she is trespassing, and Gaia tells her that she has no right to be here. Nyx tells her, "Forgive me, Gaia, I mean no disrespect. My intrusion is simply me practicing my dream walking and..." "What's your name, child? Tell me your name." "Carrie Andrews," he says. "No, your real name. Not the one you were given, but the one you chosen." "Nyx. My name is Nyx and I wish to serve the green world." A guy is like, "Is that so?" "Well, we do not normally tolerate intruders, but you intrigue me. And from this moment forward, you may commence your training as a maiden of the green world. In time, we will see if you can become more." And that's what happened with her encounter with Gaia. Over the next few years, she set to work on honing her skills, determined to dedicate herself to the green world. It was her connection to the green world that first led her to Al Simmons, and to her, he was one of the most remarkable individuals that she ever met, at least when she knew him. He's always been tormented, but she never doubted that Al was trying to do good. And that's to say nothing about how much time she spent learning and furthering her mystical education. And after all, how many can say that they've been transformed into a hellspawn? So when Al died, it was hard for her, but he wasn't the first person she lost, and she wasn't going to sit around mourning her loss. And that was in Spawn issue number 185. So she gathered new allies like Jessica Priest. She helped her continue Al's mission of protecting humanity from the forces of heaven and hell. And until one day, Al returned, and rumors have been floating around for some time, but they were confirmed when he appeared on TV. Even though Al seemed a bit different than what she remembered, but not so much, and she figured that he had his reasons for not really seeking out to look out for Nyx. But in that moment, she figured, well, when he's ready, he'll reach out to me. But it never came to the realization that she was going to get murdered eventually. And truth is, when Cog murdered her in Spawn issue 300 or 301, it's one of those two issues. Like I said, you could definitely check out the playlist at the end of this video, but that brother needs his watch time. So the truth is, according to Nyx, while she didn't expect it to be someone close to her that would murder her, it had not been a total surprise. And given the circles that she walked in, she always known that someone would come for her eventually. So she did her best to take the necessary precautions. And she didn't know if this would work, so she casted a spell, summoned a spell for her resurrection. As she awakens, Stewart greets her. "Good, you're awake. I must say, I've never come across such an intricate spell of resurrection before. Welcome to the green world. I am Stewart. How is your new body?" So she's like, "Well, I feel dizzy." And he's like, "Well, that's to be expected. Do you remember anything?" And she's like, "Well, I had some information for Spawn. I called Arthur then." And it was not Arthur. He tells her, "You've been deceived. The man you knew as Arthur was actually Cagliostro, a key architect in the chaos currently engulfing Earth." So she wonders, why would Cagliostro murder me? Stewart tells her, "We believe he was trying to steal the latent hellspawn power you held. And although he failed on occasion, he subsequently succeeded in transforming himself into an incredibly dangerous being known as Sin. He was a thief," says Nyx, "and a murderer," added Stewart. "Well, should we contact Spawn? He has a history with Cagliostro." And Stewart's like, "I think not. That's not what we should do right now. And besides, Spawn is one of the biggest threats to our world." "Well, that doesn't make any sense," says Nyx. "Ah, forgive me," says Stewart. "I forget how much time has passed while you were sleeping." And since her death from issue 300 or 301 to now, the process of creating her new body had taken several months. And during that time, the world had become a darker and much more dangerous place. So they walked for several hours, revisiting and recounting everything that had happened since her death. So Stewart tells her the green world has not escaped unscathed from this either. Rot and decay has crept in, and I fear we're rapidly approaching to the point of no return. So Nyx is like, "What is Guy doing about all this? Should we speak with her?" So Nick tells him, "Well, what is Guy doing about all this? I need to speak with her." And Stewart's like, "You will soon, but she's presently occupied." So Nyx realizes during her studies, she read many stories about the Emerald Parliament, the governing body of the green world that sits under Gaia. And over the centuries, its existence has remained critical to the heartbeat of the green world. And in addition to the steward, the current incarnation of the Parliament consists of the Keeper, the Oracle, the Builder, and the Navigator. So the Keeper tells that we have always tried not to involve ourselves in the wars between heaven and hell, but their endless squabbling over the Deadzones has made that increasingly difficult. In the past, we discreetly sent agents into the world to help keep things under control, even trying to work with Spawn himself. And the Keeper continues, The key to de-escalating the new war is for the green world to take control of the dead zones. And Nyx is like, well, won't that bring war to the green world? And Stewart's like, only if the others learn we're responsible. We are secretly creating a force to seize away control of the dead zones from Spawn, with the hope that none of them will find out it was us. And if they do, you'll all have giant targets on your back, says Nyx. Well, yeah, that's true, says the steward, but those are risks that are worth taking. But those involved would have the protection of the green world and could remain here forever if they choose. So the Keeper makes a proposition to Nyx. Our strike force is almost ready, Nyx, but there is one critical piece still missing. The steward believes you have the power needed to break into Spawn's mind to gain control of the dead zones. You will heed Green World's call. And Nyx is like, okay, I'll do it, but I'll need time to learn the necessary spells, but I'm at your service. Excellent, says the Keeper. You have shown yourself to be a loyal maiden, Nyx. And I love how all this is coming together previously in the issues of Spawn, how she showed how her and Jim Downey went into Spawn's mind and gained control of the dead zones. But in this past time has come to recognize that dedication. Henceforth, her powers have grown, charged with the responsibility of protecting Greenworld from any who wish to do it harm. And the Keeper tells her, now let me introduce you to the rest of the team. And that's when Jim Downing comes in. And to be honest, when she heard of Jim Downing, that she'll be working with Jim Downing, she had her concerns. They never met before, but she kept tabs on him when he was Al's replacement. And what she observed didn't fill her with confidence. But fortunately, over time, Jim has proven himself to her as her and Jim Downing catch up. And the problem was, she had heaven and hell hunting her, and she had no Spawn powers anymore. Simmons' energy, though, left her with a small bit of necroplasm, but that ran out. If not for the green world, she would have died. And as Jim gains more trust from Nyx, he tells her that he has something to tell her, and it's a bit complicated. While he does believe the green world is their best hope to save the world, they need to be careful. They've been there for months, and from what he's seen, or when she's seen, it doesn't feel like everyone on the Emerald Parliament is behind this plan. The Oracle and the Navigator lead a faction that's wanting to pursue more hardline tactics that could lead to trauma on Earth. And if they fail to control all the dead zones, he's worried what might happen next. And to Nyx, it was an odd thing for him to say and for him to tell her about that, but still, they joined forces. But by the time she became involved, Jim had already assembled his team already. But one slot was left to be filled, and that was between Mark Rosen, Haunt. So Nyx tells her, I'm not sure Haunt's a good fit. He's kind of a loose cannon. Why don't we try working with Jessica Priest in our cause? She's worked with her, and she's dependable. She's too close to Al, says Jim. We can't do it. What about Mark Rosen, says Nyx. And in addition to Mark Rosen, Jim also recruited Overkill and Cygor, two of Al's undead enforcers. Al may be able to raise the dead, but only Greenworld has the power to fully restore things to life. Months before Jim's return, Jim had kidnapped them from Al's base, then used Greenworld resources to revive them. When Al came to retrieve them, he had no idea he was taking spies back to his base. And she has to admit it, she still didn't believe what has been told about Al. There have been some other explanation that things began to change as she spied on him over those next few months. She barely recognized the man in front of her. There was no one moment that did it. It was more of a steady erosion until one day she realized she lost faith in him and Al went completely off the grid. From then on, she committed herself fully to the mission. While Jim built up their operation, she remained in the green world preparing for their eventual attack on Spawn. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something was amiss, and she hadn't seen Gaia once she arrived. Whenever she asked about Gaia and her whereabouts, the answer would always be the same. Gaia is preoccupied. The Emerald Parliament can't assist her in her place. And finally, it was time to attack, and that's referencing a couple issues back. And though she spent much time to prepare seeing Al again, after so long, it was harder than she would imagine. But the worst part of it all was after all that time and energy, all that sacrifice, they failed because they only got half the dead zones and not all of it. So when they go back to the Parliament, they're like, you've done very well. Unfortunately, controlling only half the dead zones will not be enough to end this war. Stewart tells her, we have decided more extreme actions will be needed. And Nyx is like, we can make another attempt to, get control of the dead zones, the other half from Spawn. And the Oracle's like, no, the decision is final. And then Nyx is like, then I wish to see Gaia, as in my right as a sign of the green world, where is she? And the steward tells her, there have been some significant developments since we have recently learned of. You are not aware, but over the centuries, the Mother of Existence has birthed a number of children, some you already know. God, Satan, Gaia herself, but there are more. Long ago, some of these children rebelled, growing in power to a point where they threatened reality itself. To protect her other creations, the mother had no choice but to seal those children away in other dimensions. We tell you this because we have studied the effects of Spawn's necroplasmic detonation. We initially believed its impact was limited to time. It's now clear it also damaged the dimensional walls that kept the mother's fallen children at bay. This is why Gaia has been absent for so long. She is in the astral planes trying to keep those seals from breaking. They're holding for now, but another event of that magnitude could shatter them completely, and that cannot happen. I believe he's referencing Spawn issue number 300. So for now, Gaia is no help to us. So it falls to the Emerald Parliament to act, says the Oracle. If it were up to me, I would simply wipe the universe clean and start over again. But without Gaia, we lack the power to do so on our own. So nevertheless, we will not stand idle any longer, and so the Parliament has decided to abandon the Green World's long-standing position of non-intervention. To end this war, our priority must be to preserve our existence first. Everything else is expendable. And that's going to put Nyx in a compromising situation. And that is the end of this issue of Spawn, issue number 338. What you guys think of that comic book? Comment below, let me know. And I know some people might be feeling like, I don't know how you feel about this, but come on, enough with the Dead Zone story arc already. But I think this takes it to the next level of the battle between heaven and hell. That's my personal opinion, but I'm with it. So previously in Spawn 338, we see Nyx's journey from the afterlife to her rebirth at the Scion of the Green World. Meanwhile, Sin continues his journey across hell. But in this panel, we get a picture of the Dead Zones. They were first created to these sites who have played a critical role in the eternal war between heaven and hell, enabling both sides to move their operatives around battleground of Earth. Now, their importance is over a year ago because Spawn closed them all, intent on ridding Earth of heaven and hell unwanted influence. An ambitious goal, but doomed to fail. Days ago, Spawn lost control of over half of the Dead Zones to Nyx. She has half, Spawn has the other half. Before today is out, Spawn will lose control over the rest of them, as the doorways connecting heaven and hell to Earth will have been reopened, this time permanently. Okay, about time we get something interesting with these damn Dead Zones and Spawn, you know? But meanwhile, in this panel right here, Haunt is waiting to meet up with Spawn, and he's like, I can't wait any longer. There's poison in my suit that's killing me. Where the hell is he? And Kurt tells Daniel to relax, he'll be here. We can't trust him, says Daniel, and he feels he's getting screwed by Spawn by all this because he believes that if he were to stay with Nyx and Downing, this would have all been sorted by now and he would have had his cure. Daniel feels that they could have used the Dead Zone stolen by Nyx and been back from heaven by now and cured, and they could have done so without making so many damn enemies. And Spawn comes in like, you're wrong. Downey and Nyx were never gonna open any Dead Zones for you. You can't control them, and they know that. And Hunter's like, then what are we doing here? And where the hell are the Dead Zones? Well, you're near the edge of one right now, says Spawn. This one's a bit of a longer route than the others, but it'll get us into heaven undetected, where we retrieve our targets. And Han's like, targets? I thought we were gonna find the antidote, like my antidote to end my sickness. And Spawn's like, man, there's a weapon capable of neutralizing anyone powered by necroplasm. And Sin, that lunatic Sin, is fixated on reclaiming the throne of hell. But to do that, he needs me to open up the rest of the Dead Zones first. And he's found a way to drain my powers. I barely survived our last fight, so I need to level the playing field. So Hunter's like, okay, so let me get this straight. So this trip was gonna happen with or without us, right? Yeah, not a problem. And Hunter's like, I just remember you talking about the Dead Zones need to stay shut. Interesting how the rules change when you need something. And Spawn's like, because I make the motherfucking rules, that's why. Now you want my help or not? And Kurt's like, yo man, we do, chill. Like, I don't need y'all fighting right now. And Spawn just snaps his finger, portal opens up, and Spawn's like, good, then let's get moving then. Now in this panel right here, unbeknownst to Spawn, Sin has already bypassed the Dead Zones, making his way back to hell. So his return hasn't been without complications though back into hell. Upon Sin and Cataclysm's arrival, they found themselves in the 9th realm, one of the most desolate corners of hell. From there, they dealt with a brutal journey across the Pandemonium Sea, then through the city of Shrieking Glass. Today, after months of traveling, they finally crossed over into the 8th realm, inching themselves closer to the first circle where Hell's throne is located. Yet with each passing moment, Sin faces a creeping realization that this is not the hell he remembers. Now we get a little backstory with Cataclysm saying this is where his ancestors came from, and he learned the true heritage of himself last year. His mother, that he's ashamed to say, has gone native, and she forgot her responsibilities to him. And Sin is like, well, she's not the first to lose their way. It's all too easy to be seduced by life, you know? And Cataclysm is pissed, like, she lied to me. All those years, I'll never forgive her for that. If she had her way, I spent my entire life never knowing who I really was. And I'm sorry for my rambling, Cataclysm says to Sin. And Sin's like, yo, man, don't apologize. One of the great tragedies of life is we do not get to choose our families. Her failings are not yours, so don't trip about it. So they arrive to the Tower of Wrath, currently occupied by Lord Barbados. And they look upon that tower, and Cataclysm is like, well, won't they stop us from entering? And Sin's like, yes, because they don't know the consequences yet. And Sin's like, hey, guess what? If they do want to find out those consequences, well, they're going to mess around and find out those consequences. So these two soldiers step in and like, step no further. You are trespassing on the lands of Lord Barbados. Identify yourselves and state your business. And Cataclysm is like, yo, man, this is Cog. You will beg his forgiveness and take us to your master. And they're like, you enter when I allow it, son. Son my ass. And he impales him, and Cataclysm goes to work on him. I'll repeat myself after the other soldier looks in horror. Run to your master and tell him that Cog has returned, that the king of hell wishes to speak to him. Okay, all right, we're gonna go back into this void with Spawn, Hunt, and Daniel Kilgore. And this is how they're transported in between the dead zones. And this art panel right here, yo, man, this is definitely worth the price of the comic book right there. This is pretty sick right here. So when they go into the dead zones, transporting, Hunt asks him, so what are you gonna do about Nix and Jim Downing? The dead zones, they just took it out from you. You're not gonna even want to get it back for them? And Spawn's like, man, I'll deal with them eventually, but right now there's more important issues. Well, what if they come to you for the rest of the dead zones? And Spawn's like, man, they're smart, so they won't, so relax. And Kurt's like, it might be a bit late for asking, but is it safe for me going to heaven? I mean, what if I get stuck there? And Spawn's like, yo, man, that's not how it works. If you want to survive this, then abandon everything you know about heaven. They've been conning humanity from the start. Okay, look, as a fellow Christian, I have my personal opinions about that, but for the sake of the storyteller, we're gonna get right back into it. And Hunt's like, look, man, I don't give a crap about either. I just want a cure, that's all. And Spawn's like, that's interesting that your powers have been holding up. I need to know how hard I can push you on this mission. And Hunt's like, look, I morphed my fist into this blade. My powers are fine into the dead zones. And Hunt's like, well, that's pretty cool that your power still works inside a dead zone. Who created your suit? And Hunt's like, honestly, man, I don't know. And if you check out Hunt issue number 1 on this channel, you will see what happened. Now, keep in mind, once they enter, they come across Sandalphon. When Spawn closed all the dead zones, he never thought about just how far the impact of his actions would have on others, and the horrible choices they would need to make. Now, this is Sandalphon, the first herald of the Magisterium. Now, when Spawn closed the dead zone, 10 of Heaven's warriors had the grave misfortune to be passing through it. They enter not realizing they never see daylight again. Trapped in the black void between dimensions, the 10 initially try working together to find a way of escaping the prison. But as the days and the weeks passed, madness quickly spread and they soon turned on each other. One by one, the warriors fell until only Sandalphon remained standing. And in some ways, he may have been the unluckiest. And him and Spawn and Hunt go at it, and it's a brutal battle. But while the others' suffering ended with their deaths, he was left in solitude for the past year. That isolation shattered the last of his sanity. Heaven and Hell knew this could happen. So to prevent either side from gaining an advantage, they introduced a failsafe, one that prevents any agents from using their powers inside a dead zone. Fortunately for Spawn, those restrictions do not apply to Hunt. He goes into a blade, impales him, dices him up, and that's it. Tell your mama to save you a plate. So that's what Hunt's telling that brother right there. So with their victory, they forged onward. And despite what Spawn said, Daniel Kilgore still feels a sense of awe when he finally arrives in heaven. Because remember, in Hunt issue number 1, Daniel was a priest. So even if the sight in front of him bears little semblance to what he studied in the seminary, he's pretty much in awe for what he sees. And Spawn's like, I'm not sure, this looks different from the last time I was here. And guess what? Now that they're here, all these heavens robotic angels with looking like scissor winks come in, and the lead one tells him, I almost pity you, Hell Spawn. Has hell fallen so far that it would degrade itself by partnering with the Hunt? Now, we'll see how this battle comes up, hopefully on the next issue, okay? So back into this panel right here, Barbados tells him, look, I apologize for my eccentric behavior. His insolence will be dealt with swiftly. And your reappearance, Cog, is a bit of a surprise, so forgive me for asking, but given that the dead zones are still locked, how did you make it back? And we know how we made it back. Spawn 333, baby. So Cog's like, look, man, that's a matter for another day, Barbados. For now, I want to talk about your sentry. Why didn't you know who I was? Well, look, it's an unacceptable disgrace. But as you understand, it's been quite some time since you were last here. And Cog's like, how long has it been? Oh, about 500 years. And judging from your expression, though, I gather the same amount of time has not passed on Earth. That blame then lies at the feet of whoever closed the dead zones to begin with, Spawn, and Cog gets pissed. Time moves differently down here, says Lord Barbados, but recent events completely destabilized the continuum, and now it is accelerating faster than ever before. So Cog asks him the whereabouts of the other people, Asmodeus, Innkeeper, Hafiz, and Lord Barbados like, look, man, it's been some time since I heard those names. It would be prudent for you to assume most of your old guards are now presumed dead. And Cog gets suspicious, like, all except you. And Barbados like, look, man, we all did what we had to do to survive. And Cog's like, surviving? Not much more? How did you end here exactly? I recall you declaring that you'd rather die than reside in the 8th realm of hell. And keep in mind, there's a whole lot of exposition here, but we're going to go through it as best as we can. So Barbados tells him, 500 years changed a lot of things, old friend. New players, new alliances, and new leaders. And don't give me that look. You couldn't seriously have expected hell to remain in stasis this whole time. Even if you only been gone a week, it was inevitable others would step in to fill that void. And Cog's like, and you were one of those, old friend? And Barbados like, you do me a disservice, my lord. I wouldn't dream of such disloyalty, but I would remind you, be careful who you accuse. You'll need me at your side if you have any hope of navigating this new hierarchy. Spare me your gloating, says Cogs. Just tell me who I'm up against. Who sits on my throne? So Barbados is like, well, my man, that's a complicated question right now. But the short answer is that if you want to make any claim to it, you'll first need to contend with Hell's current ruler, Cataclysm. Now, I don't know who this brother is, Cataclysm, but that's the ending I was talking about. You won't believe who it is because I don't even know who that is. But Cataclysm, that is a definition of major violence ready to happen. Now, I don't know if that's the first appearance of Cataclysm. I'm sure somebody watching this video knows more about Spawn than I do. Comment below, let me know on this. If this is his first appearance, and this issue is definitely worth purchasing, but I don't know that for sure because I googled him. I couldn't find much on the brother. Previously on Spawn, Spawn and Hunt infiltrate Heaven and are shocked by what they discover. Meanwhile, Urizen begins to assemble his horsemen. So in Heaven, as Spawn and Hunt go ham on the armies of Heaven, we get a little monologue of Penemu. You know, Penemu had received this highest distinction upon graduating by being touted as a possible candidate for squadron leader. And the thing is, when Penemu came of age, he was served in Heaven's army, but he was also part of the generation who enlisted right before the dead zones were locked. And so he was never given the chance to taste real combat. For as long as he remembers, he hungered for the moment when he'll be able to prove his mettle. He'll be able to prove that he can handle all this. But though nothing can prepare you for a battle with a Hell Spawn, as he flies away and Spawn's chain gang goes through his ankles and brings his ass down to the ground, get over here! Spawn is ready for that smoke and that action, takes off Penemu's mask and tells him, I'll give you an option. Tell me where you hide your weapons to neutralize a Hell Spawn and where to find the antidote for Demonsbane poison, or else I'll kill you. And then we see this drone looking down on them. We don't know if it's what's looking down on them, but something's looking down on them. So meanwhile, in this panel right here, in the Wrath of the Tau, the 8th realm, carrying on a conversation between Sin and Barbados. Barbados tells Sin to forgive him. It was such a long time ago that he can't recall exactly who was the first one to try to take Sin's throne. And it doesn't really matter though, because once the first traitors came, the floodgates were open and plunged into political crisis that took centuries to resolve. I mean, every lord with a couple hundred soldiers suddenly felt emboldened to stake a claim to that throne. And if they still had to worry about warring with Heaven, he suspects that things may have been different and turned out differently. Everyone wants the throne of Hell and everyone feels entitled to it, but guess what? It's a free-for-all. But the thing is, none of them lasted long. But at the height of the war, there were still a dozen viable contenders. The problem was none had the numbers or support necessary to secure a decisive, lasting victory. And that resulted in an arms race, with each side scrambling to create a weapon powerful enough to break the deadlock. Eventually, a young lord named Dialon Gale won as he stands victorious. Now, politically, Dialon Gale was astute, well fortified. He was also smart enough to ally himself with the Stygian necromancers quite early on to solidify his throne. That alliance resulted in the Cataclysm, a new breed of warrior designed to replace the Hellspawns. And Barbatos tells Sin, look, I know your symbiote, the first symbiote which you were, was your pet creation, Sin, but you have to admit, the Hellspawns are becoming relic, as a new warrior like this is long overdue. So Sin's like, and tell me more about this Cataclysm, alright? So the thing with Cataclysm is, many believe he was a simple foot soldier in Dialon's army who volunteered for the Necromancer's experiments. His entry changed the war and helped establish Dialon as the front runner for the throne, but it was never in doubt who was really the driving force. Emerging from their ranks, he also had the advantage of being greatly admired by many of his enemies, that he took on that deal like, you may be the throne now, but I'm coming for that ass. That's what Cataclysm said. Now, when it came time to launch his own thing, he was able to harness the admiration to devastating effect. Sin tells Barbatos, yeah, I heard about that. Some accounts claim that he slaughtered over 500 Dialine loyals himself, and it's because their powers are from Acidia, right? Not that his powers are from necroplasm or necroplasmic. Barbatos like, yeah, Cataclysm entire body is infused with obsidian. That's one area you may be able to find an opening with the other 9 viceroys. You'll need a majority if you want to have any hope of success taking over that throne, Sin. And that won't be easy because Cataclysm has gifted significant powers to each of the viceroys. Many of them are enjoying their newfound status, Sin, so you're kind of coming in from the bottom, bro. And you're going to be starting from the bottom, but you're not going to go there just like that. So Sin's like, alright man, tell me Barbatos, how many soldiers are under your command? And Barbatos like, yeah buddy, about 10,000. And you will need every bit of them because you're just gonna need it, you know what I mean? And also, if you're asking me for my help here is not just gonna be some foregone conclusion. If I'm gonna risk Cataclysm's wrath, it needs to be worth my while, says Barbatos, and says like, And he's got that side eye like, I don't know, I think I want to mess you over, but let me see what you have in mind first. What do you have in mind? And Barbatos is like, I want to be reinstated as the royal saber with dominion over the second and third realms of hell again. And says that's a high price just for 10,000 men. I'll need more than that. And Barbatos like, true, but without them, you'll find it difficult to find new recruits. And Sin's like, and tell me Barbatos, what's to stop me from killing you right now and taking your army like it's mine? And Barbatos like, in truth, nothing at all, but you have to wonder how that would look to the other 8 viceroys. You think they'll take kind to like some kind of kindly overt threats? They won't take kind to that kind of action. It's not a good look, alright? And Sin's like, I accept your request. So Penamu back in heaven held out from not telling Spawn anything for a while, but he got his first wing ripped off and he didn't want to risk that one, so he gave the information that Spawn demanded. And the building Spawn and Hunt needed to infiltrate is called the Forge, where many of the tools and equipment used by God's army are created and stored. So they sit back and wait back, and Kurt comes back and he does his recon and tells him it wasn't as bad as he expected. I mean, he thought it was gonna be pretty intense security, but I think I got a route we can all take. So they go on and do this infiltration mission. So Kurt tells them while they're doing their mission is most of the security seems to be stationed outside. He took a look inside. There's not nearly as many guards in there. So once they're inside, they still need to get past a few defense systems, but that shouldn't be too much trouble. They stored the military equipment across 6 floors. The main access points is on the 10th floor. The doors to it can only be opened by one of the senior administrators. We'll need him to get our hands on one of them, and Spawn kidnaps one of the senior administrators so they can fulfill their mission. So once they open the door, they head straight to the storage center. There's 2 guards outside. We should be able to deal with them easily enough. Hunt goes in and deals with them easily enough. I estimate we should be able to get in and get out in 20 freaking minutes. By the time anyone notices we've been in there, we'll be long gone. Hell to the yeah. They grab their administrator, do their thing. They get into the infirmary, and Spawn looks at him like, alright, if you're gonna kill me, which weapon of these would you use? And this senior administrator is like, I've seen him use that one. They call it the Divine Judgment. It's been used to kill hundreds like you. That's all I need to know, says Spawn. Now, where do you store your antidotes? Antidotes, says him?
We don't keep no antidotes here. Hunt gets pissed because that was the only reason why he went on this freaking mission. Where the hell are those antidotes? Senior Minister's like, it's not here. I swear, chemical weapons were stored here, but that department moved to Purifier Citadel. Spawn's like, then we need to get moving. Just leave him, Hunt. He's lying. I'm not leaving. And one of the guards like, don't move. And he calls for backup to his location immediately. Hunt takes care of him, knocks him out down for the count. And Spawn's like, you know, we've delayed this shit long enough. It's time to go. Now the senior administrator goes in, defends the kingdom's honor, but it's not gonna happen, bruh. Sorry about that. Maybe the next afterlife. So the bullhorn in Heaven's Throne talks about, look, attention, we're under attack, and all available personnel head to the 10th floor, and they dip out, and they gotta get out. So while Spawn, Hunt, and Daniel Kirk go into the city's outside boundaries, Rapture wants to know, walk him through at how did they breach the facility in the first place? Could they be spies that were trapped here when the dead zones were closed? And this guy is like, we can't rule that out, but I'll be surprised if someone had been here the entire time without us realizing. But we have to apprehend him and see what it's all about. Additionally, this angel tells them, this robot angel or whatnot, that they discovered remains of an entire portal that were killed near one of the dead zone sites. They believe this is how the intruders arrived in heaven. And Raptor's like, are you certain that there was a Hunt that was with the Hellspawn in heaven? And this guy's like, yes, Raptor, yes. Wonderful, that means we've already won. Send the order to dispatch the teams to each of the dead zone sites. Tell them this is priority 1 initiative. He has that grin in his face, and I don't know what the hell this is gonna be all about, but if they already won in their heads, this book is only getting better and better. So in this hideout, and Hans is pissed because Hans is like, look, man, we had a deal. The deal was I was supposed to go to heaven with you and get my antidote. Now they're BSing me. And Spawn's like, look, man, I'll honor that, but right now things are too risky. Heaven knows we're here. They'll be hunting for us, and us getting back to any dead zones will be a struggle right now. So we have to wait here and try again later when things calm down. And Hans, I don't have that kind of freaking time. My body's shutting down. And the thing is, you're gonna get what you want, and just the hell with me, man. That's not how it works, bro. So Hunt's body suddenly convulses. As they check in on Hunt to see what's going on, this voice off panel is like, I can't tell you how long I've been waiting for this day. Now tell me, which of you is responsible for trapping me in this cesspool? I don't know what the heck that point of the drone is. I wonder if the point of that drone in the beginning of this issue. I read some Spawn, but I don't know who that is. If you guys know who this character is at the end of this video, comment below, let me know. But with all that being said, link in description if you wish to add this comic book or other comic books or some of our Rated Comics exclusives to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Previously on Spawn, Spawn and Hunt continue to make their way through heaven in search of a cure for the poison coursing through Hunt's body. So now Spawn gets confronted by Korvax, and this begins exactly where we left off in the last issue. And Korvax is pissed and looks at Spawn like, because of you, I've been stuck here since you sealed the dead zones, but you're gonna help change all of that. And Spawn and Korvax have a stare off like, is that right? And yes, and if you do, I'll get you into the Purifier Citadel. And Spawn's like, and you know about that? Oh yeah, I do, says Korvax. And you should know, the only reason Heaven's army hasn't found out about you already, that you guys are here, is because I've been throwing them off your set. So Korvax is like, so I'll make you an offer. I'll take you into the Citadel, you help me leave this place. And Spawn's like, I don't know what that's got to do with me, man. I'm just looking for a cure for someone who's been poisoned. And he's like, and I know they're hiding that cure inside that Citadel, and I'll take you there. And Spawn's like, they give me what I want, and I'll do what you need. And then he just gets pissed, like, why are you getting so pissed? Now you have yourself a deal. Korvax like, did it ever occur to you that when you close the dead zones, you be trapping people on both sides of it? You have no idea how much Heaven has butchered people because of that. And Spawn's like, yeah, because Heaven and Hell got along already as it was before that. Don't blame me for your shit. You made your own mess. And you know, when you speak truth like that, people can't handle the truth like that, so Korvax goes off on Spawn, decks him. And you know, when you tell the truth like that, people react angrily, which is why Spawn takes the offense whenever possible, but instead, they let their rage guide him. And at times, that rage also blinds him. So Hunt uses an ectoplasm to deck Korvax behind the head like, come on now, enough. Have you forgotten where we're at? Spawn's like, wait a minute, your powers, Hunt. You said you had them under control. I do most of the time. And Hunt's like, I do most of the time, but recently I've been having blackouts and they're getting worse. You wouldn't have brought me along if I told you that, if you knew that. I need that cure and I'm not letting that poison kill me. So you want to leave? Fine. I'm staying until I find that cure. And Spawn's like, okay, well, let's get on it then. Korvax, you lead the way. So meanwhile, in the Infernal Keep, located in the heart of the First Realm, it houses a throne of hell and serves as the resident of hell's new ruler, Cataclysm. And he's having a sparring match with his demons, and you can tell with this sparring match, we just get a taste of how brutal and savage this guy really is. His servants, he spars with the servants like that. Maybe he can resurrect their life, but he's definitely going to work on them. And his son comes into the room. Father, we've got a serious problem. What is it, Avaron? Calicioso, he's returned, and I believe he's marshaling an army to unseat you. He calls himself Sin now, and according to our informants, he's secretly trying to recruit a majority of the viceroys. They're offering the viceroys double their current territory in exchange for the support. And Cataclysm's like, okay, is that working? And apparently, yes. So far, they secure Lita's backing in the 9th realm, and also Zerrat's backing in the 6th realm. And Cataclysm's like, well, Lita and Zerna have always been weak links, and in their positions, I'll do the same. So it's not cool, but I can understand why they're doing it, because they're weak links. But he's not doing it on his own. Who's advising him, says Cataclysm. Barbados has joined his council. Ah, of course. Father, we need to deal with this rebellion while it's still in its infancy. But if you don't act quickly, it'll spill out all across the 9 realms. And what if they uncover the real truth about the throne? I don't know what that means, but now that's just giving me a reason to read further issues to Spawn. Not that I needed it, but yeah, now I want more. I want more. Very well, says Cataclysm. If the old man wants to be put out of his misery, we shall oblige. Find out who they're approaching, then take a small force and deal with it. And before you kill Sin, find out how he was able to return, because remember, the dead zones are still shut. So Hunt asks Korvax, I'm curious, how'd you get here in the first place? I came as a part of exploratory research study. Studying what? The afterlife, says Hunt? Yes, this one. But this is one of many afterlives I've visited. Learning about them will hopefully prevent me from being permanently trapped in any of them, unlike so many others who let their ignorance seal their fates. I don't expect you to understand that, but for me to be stuck in one place for too long could be torturous. And Kurt tells Jay, who cares about this guy? We just need that antidote. And Hunt's like, I know. So Korvax continues. There were quite a few spies from Hell and Greenworld stranded here. Then Heaven's army came, hunted all of them down over time, and he believes he's the last of them to be left. So Spawn's like, well, this Heaven, everything looks different from what I remember. And Korvax is like, well, you could thank the Purifiers for that. From what I gathered, they've been Heaven's torture experts and mad scientists since the dawn of time, using the disruption created from the Dead Zone's closures to launch a coup and seize control of everything from themselves. Their leader, Rapture, is a zealot. So Hunt's like, okay, sorry to interrupt your little storytelling, but what the heck is that? It's our transportation into the Citadel. When we were initially stranded here, a group of us spent months attempting to build a teleporter so we can escape if we needed, but it wasn't able to overcome the locked dead zones at the time. It did, however, provide us with a way of hacking into Heaven's transportation network. Now, with this, we can bypass Heaven's securities and deposit ourselves straight into the heart of the Citadel. So let's go. So as they get ready to transport, these scientists are reading readings from the manipulations of the dead zones, and they're just doing their research, but out of nowhere, well, they go into the Citadel and they unleash a brutal attack. Blood, guts, quick and swift, they're done with it. Let's get on with it, says Spawn. We did our job on this part. So outside of these angels, these robot angels are like, good news, my lord. We've done numerous checks and there's no doubt that the dead zones are beginning to reopen. We estimate that this will happen within the hour. And the guy is like, the leader of the troops, like, well, then let's ready the troops. We can assume our enemies are unaware that this is happening. We need to press our advantage while we have it before our enemies become aware of our actions. Invasion forces, my lord, are standing by each dead zone. Once they're open, we can begin. So now we go back to the Tower of Screams. It's occupied by Lord Vantis, Viceroy of the Third Realm, and he greets Barbados and Sin. And he tells him, it's nice to hear from you guys. I've been hoping for an opportunity like this. I've always had concerns Cataclysm could lead us, but until now, we've lacked a viable alternative. But excuse my manners, let's break some food and have some wine and talk about this over food and wine, you know? And Barbados like, thanks, but Sin and I would prefer to get down to our business first. And out of nowhere, and what business might that be? And that's Averon, Cataclysm's son. You're aware hell already has its king. And Barbados is shocked. Is he one of yours? Apologies, Barbados. He knows not what we... And he just gets his neck snapped in half before he can even finish his sentence. Your betrayal wasn't a surprise to us, Barbados. Your corpse will hang as a warning to your replacement. And Sin's is like, staring him down, eyeing him up and down like, I think I could take this guy. Cataclysm's son's like, what are you looking at, old man? Bow your head. I'm Averon, first son of Cataclysm. So your father is cowering behind his son? And all these demons are shocked like, yo, man, that's the boss's son. Like, you talking to him like that? You must not know what he is. But then again, Averon is like, my father, the one true king, fears no one. You're just not worthy enough to garner his personal attention, but do not worry though. I'm more than willing to make sure your presence never bothers my father again. And he goes in for the attack. And that's how we end this review of Spawn, issue number 341. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. I don't know what kind of fight this is going to be, but I personally think obviously Sid's going to survive because I want to see him take down or go at it with Cataclysm. And Cataclysm first appeared in Spawn issue number 339. That's his first appearance. So if you guys are a key issue collector, think about adding Spawn 339 to your personal collection. And if this is your first time watching this channel, check out our playlist at the end of this video where we cover the history of Spawn issues number 296 and 297 all the way up to its current run of Spawn as it is now. Links in description if you wish to add Spawn or some of our other Rated Comics exclusives to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Previously on Spawn, Hunt and Spawn infiltrate the science labs of heaven in search of a cure for Hunt's sickness. So back into the green world about 3 hours ago, the Navigator heard they were discussing parliamentary matters when she, Nyx, fell into some kind of weird trance. And Jim Downey's like, man, is she okay? And they're like, wait a minute, you know, it's too dangerous to disturb her in this state. So wait, but their wait isn't long. So when Nyx comes out of the trance, Jim Downey asks if she's okay. She's like, I'm fine. But the dead zones aren't, giving us a foreshadowing what's happening right now. The dead zones, they've been opened, and the rage from those who've been waiting so long, they're out of control. Hell, near the Tower of the Screams, factions have already been chosen. Sin, Barbados, they're all going to work as they unleash war because Sin wants the throne of hell and he wants to rule it. But right now, Cataclysm has that throne right now. But enemies have been targeted, it's going down. Barbados, who is Sin's advisor because you tried to blackmail him earlier about, you know, you need my alliance and you need my allegiance to get the army you need to take on Cataclysm. He gets impaled to the back by Cataclysm's son, Averon. And Averon's like, nah, bro, were you trying to escape? You haven't earned my mercy. Barbados begs him to stop. But guess what? He gets saved by Sin as Averon gets blasted in the back by Sin, formerly known as Cagliostro. So your father must think very little of you to send you here to die today, says Sin. And Averon's like, nah, man, you're the dead man, Sin. Did you even notice the importance of this place? Its history, says Sin. He effortlessly takes him out, claps back at him, and pummels him to the ground. And Sin's like, let me educate you. Several miles from here is the site of what was once the largest necroplasm reservoir in hell, a reservoir that for centuries provided enough necroplasm to power every hell spawn in hell's army. But that extraction process was also releasing necroparticles into the air that contaminated much of the third realm. And even though the reservoir is now dry, the air is still filled with its residue. Alright, a residue I've been absorbing since the moment I arrived here. And he punches him through the chest, Invincible style. I mean, even though Invincible is the Image comic, yo, you gotta appreciate the artistry right there. Barbados gets up, limping. Well done, my lord, Sin. I don't know who betrayed us or who ratted us out to Avron, but I swear to you, I'm gonna root them out. And Sin's like, nah, you're wounded. And Barbados like, yeah, I've seen better days, but don't worry, I'll be all better once the medic arrives. Well, tragic for you, says Sin. He won't arrive in time. Your sacrifice won't have been in vain, though I suspect Avron's assassination of you and Vantis should help convince the wavering viceroys to join my side. You should have never tried to blackmail me earlier, Barbados. Now that head is mine. I wish we had an editor's notes on what issue he's referring to, but yeah, Barbados is like, you need my help, and if you try to kill me now, which you could, nah, bruh, you're gonna need my help for this. But Sin is like, nah, man, I don't need you for this. I want to be the only one. So meanwhile, in heaven, the Purifier Citadel, Korvax finally completed synthesizing the antidote for Hunt. And Hunt's like, are you sure this is gonna work? This is gonna cure me? Well, relatively, says Korvax, but I noticed something strange while downloading the Citadel database. It seems Demon's Bane poison isn't fatal as he injects him. What, says Hunt? Yeah, it makes his target delirious, weak. It severely weakens him, but it doesn't kill him. Well, why would someone infect me with something like that, says Hunt. And this angel who got hurt in the battle that ensued, or that happened before, tells him, you have no idea what you've done by coming here today. Says Spawn. He's trying to stay alive, just buying some time. Maybe. But this was all planned. You were fools. You were lured here to open the dead zones. And Spawn's like, when I leave, I'm locking them again, so don't worry about it, bruh. Too late, says the angel. They're unlocked for good, says the angel. You can't undo that. And we've been limited in the number of warriors we could send through that before. But by coming here, you've permanently destabilized them, giving us the power to finally be able to launch a full-scale invasion into hell. There wasn't a bridge between our two domains before. There is now. In all this war between heaven and hell, angels from heaven are going into hell and unleashing war and battle. This is brutal right here, and I'm loving it. And at this very moment, a staggering buildup of warriors are pouring through every dead zone. They're able to bypass Earth altogether, sending our entire forces directly into hell to begin their ambush. So the angel puts the dagger in the back of Spawn. We have you to thank for that. So Korvax uses his drone in the sky. He's like, yep, he's telling the truth. And Spawn gets pissed. How did you do this? Oh, that's the best part, says the angel. It's because of Hunt. Hunts are creatures of chaos, abominations that were never supposed to travel through dead zones. But when you brought him through one, a destructive chain reaction went off that was built up until each disrupted each of the dead zones, and it messed everything up. That's why he was poisoned. He was needed as bait, and you took it. Reverse it now, says Spawn. The dead zones don't belong to you anymore, says the angel. You've lost. Spawn gets pissed and rips him to shreds with his chains. And Spawn has to regroup himself. He's like, I have to close his portals, man. Once again, I have to close the portals again. And I have to leave you here to do that? I will. Hunt's like, okay, fine, go. Do you have any idea how many lives will be lost because of this? Well, hey, hold up, bro, says Hunt. Don't pin this on me. You're the one that knows everything. How'd you miss something that big? You know, don't be putting it on me. I don't do it like that. I was just trying to get a cure, but you're Spawn, you know. That's enough, says Korvax. Heaven's forces are on their way, so if you want to get any hope of getting back to Earth, I suggest you join me at the teleporter. So back to the war in hell, where all these angels are trying to cleanse the universe of hell's existence. Blood spills as each hour passes, and both sides are thinning out their ranks, with each fallen warrior being tossed into the abyss for the damned, until the day someone attempted to turn the tide. And when he arrives, Sin is pissed, and these angels know, everyone knows, it's about to go down. Sin, formerly known as Caliciosha, has amassed too much power. A day that will scar hell forever. But you know, we'll see how this war is going to turn out, because this is going to be crazy. So by the end of this particular battle, casualties had already been reached into the thousands as heaven's forces sweep across the kingdom. The Battle of the Screams, as it became known, was one of the rare instances when hell succeeded in repelling its invaders. Death to them all, says Cataclysm. No matter what side the demons had previously vowed loyalty to, in this battle, all were united by the end. For Cataclysm's followers, the world before the invasion would no longer matter, because in times of crisis, it had been Sin, not their king, who would come to defend them, to protect them. Very strategizing for Sin. So after the battle, after they had their short but temporary victory, but they know their victory is going to be spreading, there's going to be more fights to come, Cataclysm tells Sin, we've already received messages from support from several local lords looking to join in on our cause. We have the makings of a formidable force with Barbados and Vanta's armies now at our disposal. It'll only grow in the coming weeks, says Cataclysm. Good. No point in hiding any longer. Cataclysm already knows our plan, says Sin. And heaven? What about heaven? Does their arrival change things? Nah, says Sin. It complicates matters, but I'll find a way to turn it to our advantage. For now, savor today's victory, Cataclysm. Its memory will fortify us for the long, grueling road ahead. Our enemies, we know, will attempt to use everything at their disposal to try to stop us. But rest assured that in the end, each of them, one by one, will fail. At which point I will take my rightful place on Hell's throne. And though this is a banger of an issue the way this ended right now, because I don't know what Spawn's gonna do, I don't know what Nyx of the Green World's gonna do, Cataclysm ain't got no army, Sin's about to look like he's about to rise to the top, and everything is just all up in the air, and who knows how it's all gonna come down and connect the pieces here. So this is an amazing story. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. This is probably one of the best issues of Spawn I've read, in my personal opinion. So previously in Spawn, the dead zones are open. Heaven's plan to deceive Spawn has worked, and an all-out war with Hell has begun. So 3 days, that's how long it's been since the dead zones were reopened. 3 days since Heaven launched its invasion upon Hell, taking their eternal war into new unprecedented territory. Now it's also been 3 days since Spawn's grand plan ended in total failure. This is in the previous issue when Spawn and Haunt were in Heaven trying to find a cure for Haunt. While most of Heaven and Hell have been preoccupied with the war, fighting amongst each other, others have decided to take advantage of their newfound freedom and escape to Earth and roam and hide in the shadows, unconcerned about keeping a low profile, existing simply to inflict suffering, eager to make up for lost time, baby, because Spawn opened up them dead zones and his brother wants to go to work. That's behind Spawn. Since his return from Heaven, he had no time to regroup or rest. And so where is Spawn in all this? For the most part, he's getting exhausted and tired, spending every waking moment struggling in vain to hold back an avalanche of threats that has been unleashed. And this guy from behind decks Spawn with the haymaker from behind, and he unleashes himself on him. And he mocks Spawn after he decks him with the haymaker. Is it true, Hell Spawn? Did Heaven really trick you so easily? Pie faces him to the ground, and all Spawn could do at this moment, like, you ain't clapping back at me, I'm clapping back at you. Symbiotic spike through the hand. Spawn's not about to answer to no one. Goes to work on him, knees him in the face, kicks him in the midsection, and Spawn looks down at him like, yeah, you clap at me, I'm knocking you out. What have you done, Al? Says off screen. What do you want, Nyx? What you think? The dead zones are shut, now they've been blown wide open. That's what I want. There's a war going on, burning in hell. So what's your point, says Spawn. So Nyx is like, cut the crap out. I know you triggered all of this. Why? What happened? And then Spawn's like, well, Heaven destabilized the dead zones. But you were there too, and you were not supposed to be in Heaven, so what hand did you play in all this? Hey girl, slow your roll. I was looking for a way to neutralize Sin's power since he's running rampant in Hell. And all Nyx could do is like, unbelievable, man. All your grandstanding and lecturing about how great the Al Simmons knew everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Is this why you're here, says Spawn? You're just gonna taunt me and mess with my vibe? You mess with my sexy. Well, guess what? I'm here to fix your mess, says Nyx. It can't be reversed, says Al. And he wonders if at this time he should call a truce with her. But with the dead zones off the table, there's no reason for them to be enemies no more. Well, says the clown. Now isn't this cozy? I didn't know that Nyx's death would be the reason for you two to create such a heartfelt relationship. I need to mention this to my own family. And this is referencing Gunslinger Spawn 21 through 23, which we did cover Gunslinger Spawn issue 21, 22, and 23 as of the making of this video has not been unleashed yet. Or released yet. Now speaking of release, Spawn does his own necroplasmic release to the clown, because at this point he was told that the clown has survived. He killed his wife Wanda, and he's also the reason Spawn inadvertently created a time rip, causing chaos throughout the time metrics. And that's in Spawn issue 300 and 301, which we gladly covered on this channel, and those were gangster moments between the clown and Spawn. But since his transformation to a now formidable size, Clown's physical prowess has increased 100-fold as he laid another haymaker on Spawn. So he tells Nyx, I'm only here to talk. Al has always been a bit reactive when it comes to me, but I think you both would want to hear what I have to tell you. It's Sin. It's about Sin. He's back in hell right now, gathering himself an army, intent on taking over the throne. And Spawn's like, well, who's resisting him? And Nyx is like, well, the zones have only been unlocked for a few days now. He can't gather a size of an army that freaking quickly. Oh, he's been there a lot longer than a few days. And who's resisting him? Well, he's not giving anyone a chance to do that. He found a fissure underneath Omega Island. That's how he got in, even though the dead zones were locked. A dimensional crack. Sin was able to use it by harnessing the power he stole from you, Al, and other hell spawns. That's given Sin months to get ahead of his enemies. And why are you telling us all this, says Nyx? Well, because he'll destroy everything if he succeeds. And as much as I disdain you guys, as much as Al, you disdain me, if you don't find a way to abort Sin's mission, it won't matter how much you hate me. None of us have a choice in the matter. Then what, says Al? We kill him, clear a path for you so you can take the throne? And Clown's like, yeah, I do want the throne. Because the throne of hell should be ran by its own, not humans. So worry about stopping me after we're done with Sin. So why don't we just deal with the reality that's staring at us right now? Deal with Sin, deal with me later, Spawn. Clown turns around and says, oh, by the way, Nyx, you might want to pass this information on to your bosses in the green world. And all Spawn can do is like, what? Green world? Oh, she works for them now. You should have known that by now. Her side is involved in this game too, says Clown. Now, I'll leave the two of you to discuss that, but don't spend too much time on it because Sin's hoping that we all fight amongst each other. That way he only has to pick off one of us or two of us so he can go back to his conquering. So, ta-ta. It says Cloud. He didn't say ta-ta, I just felt fitting. Before Nyx could explain herself to Al, he tells her, I don't want to hear it, Nyx. I'm done with you. And he disappears in the shadows too. So the war rages on near the Infernal Cape in Hell. And meanwhile, while all this is going on, even though it's been happening for the last few days, they've all been going at each other. Turns out Cataclysm and his group have found a way to regroup their forces, and they've made steady progress driving back their enemies across the kingdom. So they've retaken the regions and all these other parts. And lastly, there is encouraging signs near the Straits of Desolation. Reports indicate that they may be able to drive Heaven's forces out there if they have the time. So as his advisor tells Cataclysm, however, these are all encouraging signs, but not enough to compensate for the fact that in the last few days, we lost a quarter of the territory to Heaven or Sin's army. And Cataclysm's like, and why was your commission not prepared for this? Well, with respect, King, none of us could have predicted this. We can assess blame later, but it's best to focus on ensuring that we still have the kingdom by month's end. Our most urgent attention is required at the Fangs. We've been able to hold Heaven's army now, and the Fangs is, I'm taking the previous panel we just watched. If we lose to the Fangs, we lose the war. So connected to that, given the scale of Heaven's threat, there may be time, we may need to consider negotiating a truce with Sin. And Cataclysm is like, what are you suggesting? That I go begging to my son's murder who's trying to steal my throne? You better back up, son. Like, you freaking crazy? And they're like, look, we're not excusing Sin's actions, my liege, but the fact remains that right now, Hell's forces are splintered and we need to get Heaven's warriors up out of here. So if we don't act soon, Heaven will overwhelm us. So Cataclysm's like, alright, well, I ain't trying to hear nothing else right now, so begin preparations now. So the thing is, if he really has power of the throne of hell, why hasn't he used that power when that power is known to split the planets in half and just slay all these angels and celestial beings? Well, if all that's true, why hasn't Cataclysm taken it upon himself to use that power? And that's what Sin is asking Cataclysm. And he's asking, I don't know. Think hard. What's possible reason that for Cataclysm not to use the current and true power of the throne of hell? And Cataclysm is like, oh, because he can't. Yes. And I'll tell you why, because the substance coursing through Cataclysm's veins, in many ways, Obsidia is a more powerful and potent energy source than Necroplasm, but it has one critical flaw. It isn't native to hell, and therefore prevents whoever uses it from accessing the throne's power. So Cataclysm's creator likely chose it that way for an exact reason, hoping it'll be a way to keep Cataclysm at bay, preventing him from trying to take the throne himself. So that's why Cataclysm's been hiding that fact from the people he's controlling. The thing is, ignorance is a powerful tool when used wisely. So remember this, says Sin to Cataclysm. Remember, hell has been closed off for the entirety of Cataclysm's reign. Given his presence, he's likely never had to need to demonstrate that throne's power to anyone. So he may call himself the king of hell, but he's only pretending, and soon all of hell will know the truth. So Beck in Greenworld, Jim Downey, Cyborg, they've all greet Nyx. We were wondering when you were coming back. And Nyx is like, Jim, what's going on? Why is everyone here? Well, we just got some news handed down that you should hear. And Nyx is like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I need to speak to the parliament about the situation in hell. It's gotten worse. And they tell her, yeah, they've already made things happen. They've been in deliberations about it for the last few hours, trying to figure it all out. And they've announced their decision, but you know what? You're not gonna like it. And that is the end of this issue, which I believe Spawn retreating from Nyx, it recovers a fatal mistake. And I don't know what that fatal mistake is, but oh my gosh, that's where we end off this issue of Spawn, issue number 343. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know.
So previously in Spawn, the war in hell continues to rage on all sides, and Spawn realizes he needs an army of his own. So at 12:53 in midnight, this guy is running away from Gunslinger Spawn, and Gunslinger Spawn tells him, yo man, you're slippery, I'll grant you that, but your friend back there, don't think he'd be happy about you leaving him behind like that. And Gunslinger Spawn is looking for some information. He wants to know where McCarver's at. And this guy just tells Gunslinger, like, I don't know who he is, and I don't know who the hell is that. Well, your buddy back there, he's dead, and he says something different, so you better come on with it, boy. That's enough, cowboy, says Spawn off panel. And Gunslinger points his gun at him like, alright Simmons, I'm busy, what do you need? I got an offer for you, Gunslinger. I'm heading into hell, and I need a team to come with me. I'd like you to be part of that team. And Gunslinger's like, okay, so we're pals again? That's not exactly how things work. And this is a reference to Gunslinger Spawn, issue number 19, which we did cover on this channel, how Spawn and Gunslinger parted ways and how that turned out. So Gunslinger tells Spawn and kind of claps back at him like, go talk to your scorched heroes. And Spawn tells him, but listen man, these guys you're dealing with, they're nothing compared to what's going on in hell. And if you want to avenge your sister, this might be the best opportunity for you to do that. Ah, says Gunslinger, now you're trying to appeal to my humanity. How's that? Sin, he's in hell, says Spawn. And Sin, formerly known as Cagliostro, have some history going back like Chiropac, you know? So Spawn tells Gunslinger that he's having an army and he's looking to, you know, take over the throne of hell, but with each amassing of that army, he's getting more powerful. So if he gets to the point where he's able to take over the throne of hell with the army that he's building up, it's game over. Our boy Spawn is smart enough to know that he can't do this thing by himself. Gunslinger's like, okay, so he's not the only one gunning for that throne. Clown's racing there too. He wants that throne, and he said you weren't playing your part in that. But if you can get me to Sin, I'll be your soldier under one condition, says Gunslinger. I got to be the one to put the bullet in his head. And this is a reference to Gunslinger Spawn issue number 21 through 23, even though as of the recording of this video, we haven't covered Gunslinger Spawn issue 23 because it hasn't came out yet. You already know on this channel we will. So in the sixth realm of hell, currently it's under the control of heaven, acting as a central command for heaven's invasion force. So this guy gets informed by his commander, and he tells him that their intelligence suggests that at this time there's no risk of Cataclysm and Sin forming any alliance. So Cataclysm's army still remains the larger of the two, but with each passing day they're hearing that more and more demons are moving to support Sin. And Sin's army continues to be an ongoing problem in the east as they just keep launching their attacks, attacking their outposts. And guess what? They're winning right now for the dub, while Heaven's forces are kind of taking the L right now from Sin's side of things. So his commander tells him that he's thinking perhaps they should be focused more on the attention of Sin now. And so they rather focus on Sin and deal with Cataclysm later because Cataclysm is the lesser of the two. So this chief, or whoever he is, tells this guy that Sin will be dealt with later. For now, we will press forward and grind hell into the ground before they can regroup. Now tell me, how are our efforts at the Fangs progressing? Well, you know, with the Fangs, Gabriel is leading the attack. They're preparing new assaults. You know, the Fangs will fall in no time, and Heaven's forces are just going there, and the Fangs are part of like Hell's armies, like a division of Hell. And the way things are going with the Fangs, they're looking to make their advancements in no time. Hell will be conquered by Heaven in no time. That's good news to the chief. Now he wants to know about Cataclysm, and this guy informs him that Cataclysm has been sighted on the battlefield, a testament to Hell's increasing desperation and the Fangs' strategic importance. Good, now we need to take them off the board. So the siege of the Fangs things, it's day 3 of this battle, and his advisors think it's foolish to be here. But before he was Hell's ruler, Cataclysm was a soldier. And even though his advisors want to fall back because they feel that their forces are dwindling down, nah, Cataclysm knows the importance of a leader's presence on the front lines, something that's become even more vital with Sin's rise in power. So there's also another reason. The all-consuming nature of the battle is a welcome distraction from the traumas of the last few weeks. His firstborn son was murdered, butchered by the human now, attempting to steal his throne, Sin. So when you lose your son like that to Sin and you guys are beefing right now, nah, he ain't giving up and he ain't thinking clearly. So it appears in the end, he may likely lose his war, but he doesn't want to think of it like that. So if these are to be his final days, he also wants to take as many of his enemies as he can with him. So back in this panel right here, Spawn is also trying to recruit Hunt. And Hunt's like, come on now, you can't be serious. After that mess that happened a few issues back in heaven? Nah, bruh. And Spawn's like, look, Hunt, this is not about you or me, it's about Earth. And Hunt's like, that's what you said last time, bro. And how did that work for us? So go find you another sucker to do your bidding. And Spawn has to pause, bite his tongue, because he has to grapple to find the right words to say next. And Spawn's like, okay, bro, you're kind of right on this. Excuse me, says Hunt, because this is very uncharacteristic of you. I said you're right. I mean, what happened in heaven was my fault. You want to hate my guts for that? Fine, but right now, we need you. And we need you to go to hell or else we're all going to be swept away. And Hunt's like, I don't know if I'm built for this kind of stuff. I thought that once I found the cure for this thing, that maybe things with myself and this ectoplasm that's all up on me will be normal again. But all this is bullshit. I never asked for any of it, and yet here I am, says Hunt. And the worst part is knowing that nothing's ever gonna be normal for me again. So am I angry? You're damn right, I'm freaking angry at everything. But then I think about what those bastards did to those people, I couldn't care less. So guess what? Right now, wrestling with my own thoughts over here, you got yourself a soldier for this suicide mission. How many soldiers you got right now? And Spawn's like, a few. Okay, well, Hunt's like, well, count me in then. I guess I'm already in. But what about the dead zones? I mean, I thought if I go through the dead zones in the previous issues, it'll screw everything up. And Spawn's like, well, don't even worry about that. They're already destabilized. You can't make things worse than what they already are. Little does he know, Spawn's not giving them the whole truth right now, because heaven, hell, dead zones, it's all going down right now. It's Armageddon on its own right there. But Spawn needs Hunt on his side, so he'll tell him whatever lies he needs to get him on board. So that desperate level of recruiting has been on full display since his recent encounter with Clown and Nyx. Al knows that he has a limited amount of time before he has to get to hell. As it is, both Sin and Clown already have a large head start. Soon, Spawn will need to make up for that lost time, while some who have joined him have converged on this rooftop building in Berlin. So he goes up to Jessica, asks what's the latest. Spawn tells Spawn there's 6 guards on the inside. You know, the rest is not too extensive. Gunslinger and Soul Crusher are inside and they already got things handled right now. But the building right now, right that we're looking at, Spawn, it's just a shell, designed to the dimensions of the dead zones it's sitting over. So as soon as we step in there, we will have no powers, because that's the thing with hell spawns. You go into a dead zone, their powers will be no more. So Spawn asks Spawn, do you know where we'll land once we go through the portal? Hard to tell, realistically, says Spawn. It could drop us anywhere, even in the middle of the battle. Spawn goes into the comm and Soul Crusher tells Spawn that they secured the location, and Spawn's like, hang tight. You know, we're still waiting for others to arrive. We're gonna go in there, man. Soul Crusher's like, okay, but Gunslinger Spawn says if you guys are not here in 2 minutes, he's going through the portal himself. Which, you know, for all we know, Gunslinger Spawn might be going into the middle of the battlefield at this point. But anyways, they'll be seen in a second. So day 5 of the war. The dead now number in the tens of thousands with more to come. So Cataclysm gets told that, you know, their forces are spread too far and too thin, with sinking morale, and recruits are getting harder to come by. Heaven's forces will take the Fangs with another new advancement. Now the only question is, when will we fall back? We need to focus on surviving in the future. That means getting you out of here before it's too late. No, says Cataclysm, I won't leave my army. So Cataclysm's like, nah, if we lose the Fangs, we might as well hand over the entire kingdom of hell over to Heaven's leaders, and we stay and we just, you know, oh, but my king, they interrupt him. Our entire position is deteriorating. We're out of options here. We have to go. But there's a loud, thunderous sound that happens in the air. Overkill, Cygor, the Green World comes in, and they come in and attack. And based on the last issue, there was a decision to be made, but guess what? With that decision, with the Green World, obviously, for the first time in millennia, Green World has finally come off the fence and made a choice. And that choice is to help out our side, help out humanity, when it was indicated before that they may not even lean towards that. They might just tear it all down and build it up again, and more chaos is about to ensue, all while Spawn is trying to figure out how to go to hell and make sure Clown or Sin doesn't get the throne. And that is the end of this issue of Spawn issue number 344. Armageddon Unleashed and Spawn's Eternal War escalates. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. So previously in Spawn, just when Cataclysm feels the war is all but lost, a new ally joins him. It's a war for the throne of hell. The dead zones are open, heaven, hell, all the forces are going in and out like it's nobody's business, and they're going all out. So 3 days ago in the Green World, the Oracle tells Nyx and Jim Downey that none of them are pleased about the circumstances that they're faced with right now. This breaks centuries of neutrality. Green World never intervenes like this, and what they're talking about is heaven want to take over hell's throne. Sin has amassed the army, he wants the throne of hell too. So right now the likeliest outcome of this war is heaven conquers hell entirely, or that Sin takes over the throne. Both will be catastrophic for the Green World. The throne of hell must be occupied, so Cataclysm is the best of their regretful options, and he's the lesser of the evil right now because their intelligence suggests that he cannot access the throne's addictive powers due to his physiology. And that was referencing a few issues back when Sin knows that Cataclysm cannot access hell's true power because he's not necroplasm. That's not his origin. It's a different origin. Also, the Oracle knows that Cataclysm can be negotiated with. So Nyx is like, there's gotta be another way. There isn't, says the Oracle. And if he too has such concerns about this, perhaps he would have tried harder to prevent it. If he would have taken control over all the dead zones from Spawn, they wouldn't be in this position right now. Jim is like, so now they're playing a little blame game going back and forth right now. So Oracle's like, enough, we must act or else Sin will almost certainly take the throne, and if he does, none of us will survive. So right now, protecting the Green World is above all else. Nyx and Jim Downey, you guys are the scion of the Green World. Now go and do your duty. So now, in present time, all is going out. Nyx is doing her thing, Overkill's doing his thing, Cygor's doing his thing. They're just going all out in hell, annihilating these angels. And one of the commanders tells this guy, hey, you know, this is turning into a slaughter, my lord. We don't have the numbers for this. We need to leave or we'll be trapped here. But before they can give the order, there's some incoming, and that incoming, it's the heap. Heat goes in, guns blazing, heat blazing, I should say heat blazing, not heat's blazing, heap blazing, cracks him in the skull, and this guy, Gabriel's like, you filth, prepare to, and he gets blasted in the back, like, nah, it prepared nothing. So Nyx blasts him in the back, and she tells he, good work, keep pushing. So this guy tells Nyx, you should have stayed out of this. We have respected Green World's neutrality. We would have respected it, but you've broken your oath. After hell, we will lay waste to your eternal forest too. Your sacred gardens will burn, and every root and branch will be ripped out till nothing remains. So Nyx goes up to Cataclysm, and Cataclysm is like, okay, so Green World has finally chosen a side? You must be scared. Nah, says Nyx, you got it all wrong, bro. Scared? You weren't capable of maintaining control of your own kingdom. I'm a scion of Green World. On their behalf, I'm here to offer you our support. Says Cataclysm, and what do your masters want in return? Stability once this war is over with, and Earth is off limits. And Cataclysm's like, great, because I have no interest in Earth. So tell your parliament I accept. So now they take the prisoner from, the Heaven's Angel, and they want to extract every information they can out of him. And Cataclysm tells his people to, set up the accommodations for his new allies. So now Spawn's in the 7th realm, Spawn and his team. And due to the Dead Zone's ongoing instability, it's been impossible for Spawn to predict where in hell and the portal would send him and his team. While not ideal, the 7th realm is their starting port. And they have to navigate this surgically to avoid any unnecessary conflict, and they have to be slow in their progress. Well, not too damn slow, but in hell, there's no shortage of threats lurking in the shadows. So Spawn soldiers know that they won't all be coming back from this encounter. Some, like Medieval and Redeemer, are here out of a sense of duty.
of honor of others. Like Reaper, he's driven by a future destiny. Gunslinger Spawn, like many of the other soldiers, is driven simply by self-preservation, because they all know if this war is lost, there will be nowhere safe to hide. But they all blame Spawn about this, because they're like, Spawn, you're barking orders when you're the one that caused all this mess. You allowed Nix and Jim to get access to half the dead zones. You opened up the dead zones, and now all this is turning upside down, and it's all your fault. Yeah, you know what? It is Spawn's fault. But you know what? They're all here because of one man, Sin. And Sin was formerly known as Cagliostro, but in Then in Spawn's universe, it showed his transformation, and it showed how to lead up to that transformation of Spawn issue 314 through 317, which we did cover that in this channel. And no matter what era they hail from, each Hellspawn in this group has had their life blighted by the man once called Cagliostro. And each knows that, for all Spawn's flaws, he remains their best chance at stopping Sin, because by now every faction has deployed enough scramblers and enchantments to make any attempt at teleportation impossible, so they gotta walk. So traveling on foot, it takes Spawn's team a week to reach the edge of the 6th realm. 2 additional days are spent crossing the numbing cold of Leviathan's domain, and they rest up a little bit. But they all question their own sanity. So they're riding on this boat, crossing about the Hell River, I guess you want to say, and they keep hearing voices of the people that they know who've died. And Medieval Spawn's like, I forget that this is your first time in Hell, She Spawn. Do not worry, these voices are just one of Hell's many tricks to confuse you. At least the voices you hear are friendly. The ones I hear belong to those enemies whose lives I took. Sadly, your own victims will soon be screaming in your head. So they hear a splash out loud. Somebody jumped in the water. It was Soul Crusher. Like Jessica, this is Sergi's first trip to Hell too. Several moments ago, from the depths of the swamp, he began hearing a voice calling for help, and that voice was his sister Natasha's voice, and she died months ago in a horrible accident. He knows it can't be real, and yet he continues to swim deeper. So Spawn goes in to rescue him. Sergi's like, nah, don't be coming at me like that. I want to rescue my sister. So he decks Spawn in the face, and Spawn decks him with his chains. So even after he regains consciousness, Sergi will continue fighting against his restraints, wanting to return to the swamp. It will take another 2 hours for his madness to fully pass. Hell's playing tricks on him, and guess what? That's just the way the game goes, bruh. Later, at the edge of heaven, occupied territory. So now they notice that they're resting, that they've created a defensive perimeter stretching miles in either direction. Spawn notices that, and Redeemer's like, can we go around? Nah, says Spawn, that'll take too long. We're already days behind where we need to be. And She Spawn's like, well, there has to be another way. Can you guys scout ahead, see if there's any kind of gap in the perimeter we can sneak through? Medieval, escort them, sort them all out, come back and report. So in the 4th room, Cataclysm and Sin have a conversation, and what their conversation's about is, Sin tells Cataclysm, do you remember when we met? I was convinced you were a spy sent by a clown, and that's going back a few issues back in Spawn 2. And Cataclysm is like, well, I hope I've changed your mind about that. Well, that's yet to be determined. But you have done well these past few months, Cataclysm, of uniting so many different armies under one banner. That was not easy, but you did it. And I may just have to keep you alive when this is all done. Though even though Sin won't say this out loud, Sin feels a deep sense of pride having watched this boy develop into a strong, capable leader. So Cataclysm asks him, if I may, there's some concern amongst the soldiers about Greenworld's intervention. Haha, says Sin, understood, but I'm focused on the future. Tell me, do you know what a Royal Saber is? And Cataclysm says no. It's one of the highest positions in the Hellfire Council, responsible for overseeing the entire military of Hell. So Sin tells Cataclysm, when I take the throne, I want you to be my saber. So in the Infernal Keep, the 1st realm, Cataclysm is having a meeting with his people, and even though it feels like momentum is in their side right now after their intervention, it's also making him look weak because he has to accept outside help. They don't know that he can't tap into Hell's Throne's full potential power. But you know what? Cataclysm's like, when this is done, no one will care what blade we use to kill the snake. You know what? So it's all good. So his people tell him, well, that's okay, because there's also further good news as well. So Cataclysm was like, what? Another potential ally wishes to speak with us, or what's going on? Now back in this panel right here, She Spawn finally knows that Nyx is alive and Nyx is behind all this. Nyx is with the Green World, and she took the Green World side, and Green World took Cataclysm's side to defend the throne of Hell. And She Spawn's like, this doesn't make any sense. This is not something that she would do, not without a good reason. And Spawn's like, I've learned everyone has an agenda. She's no different. Death will do that. But if Green World gets in our way, we treat them the same as heaven and hell. Says she Spawn. Maybe Cataclysm staying in power is the best option for now. He's a lesser of the evil. Spawn's like, we can't let Cataclysm take over the throne. He won't even last. Even if they could keep him in power, he'd be diminished. And his challengers aren't going to stop coming for him until someone, then they see something from afar and they got incoming. And that incoming impacts on the ground. And Sergi's like, Christ almighty. And that is the Reaper on the ground. Even though it's been foreshadowed that not all of them are going to make this trip alive and come back alive, well, we don't know what the threat is, but whatever did that to Reaper, it's about to go down. And that is the end of Spawn issue number 345. What do you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. Also, link in description if you wish to add this comic book and or some of our other Rated Comics exclusives to add to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Lastly, this video is sponsored by coffee, so if you'd like to buy your boy a cup of coffee, link in description or donate to the super thanks. But the greatest compliment you guys can do is by liking this video and subscribing to Rated Comics YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching. Until next time.